Pavilion Banqueting Hall, comprising 2 beautifully decorated modern guest suites with seating capacity for up to 1,100 guests. An ideal choice for engagements, weddings, Mendi parties, exhibitions and seminars. Supported by the latest sound and video technology, air-conditioned and free Wi-Fi. Contact us today and see how we can make your vision a reality. The Eastern Pavilion Banqueting Hall, located on Featherstall Road South, Oldham. A perfect choice for your perfect day.
The contents of this program may not necessarily represent the views of UK24 TV.
And welcome to UK Today, a program that looks at all the issues that matter to you. And today we are looking at the issues around the qualities and the perceptions that are around the leadership in the world. And one of the things that we've learned over the last, if not a few years, or the last few months, but if in particular the last few weeks, and I'm going to bring in Harry, is Assalamu alaikum, Harry and Shakoor. One of the things that we've learned very quickly, especially in the last few weeks, is that qualities and perceptions that are created around leadership, but good leadership and bad leadership, is very interesting. So, Assalamu alaikum again. Harry, of course, you are my co-host, my colleague here.
Assalamu alaikum to everyone.
And Shakoor Saab, you are a mental health specialist. You are a trained practitioner, but you specialise within the particular area of mental health and dementia. And people are probably wondering why we've got somebody here who's looking at mental health. But one of the things, Harry, when we were looking at the personality traits, when it comes to the qualities and perceptions that are attached to the persona, if we may say, of leadership around the world, is that mental health and good mental health or bad mental health and the issues around health generally play a big role, don't they, in terms of leadership?
Well, I think looking at the leadership around the world, that
necessarily
does not. I mean, I have to strongly disagree, because I think we'll talk to Dr. Shakoor in a minute about the mental side of things. But just talking in general, I don't think, just like, for example, in in the House of Parliament, you don't have to have a single qualification to go and sit there and get elected. You know, you don't have to read and write. You can still get elected if enough people vote for you. So that goes for, you know...
That shows in some of the politicians, doesn't it, that they probably don't have the ability to read or write. So this issue about what they're saying being scripted, is that goes out the window as well, doesn't it? Because they can't read the script that they're written on.
It's like in my job, which I do in Togmind, working as a mental health practitioner and community development, I had the opportunity to meet community leaders, faith leaders and all, and I think for a good leader, he has to have a good mental health, emotional health.
But before that, let's talk about the reasons why someone would want to be a leader, because it's not everybody's cup of tea or cup of coffee or cup of chai, is it? It's why the reasons behind it. What would you say is the reason behind it?
There could be very many reasons. One is that if somebody sees that a lot of things are not happening right to the community or people of the country, and they are in operation, and then he feels that he must do something as a part of his duty. So then he starts coming out and try to get people around him. And then if he is doing really a good job, then he doesn't have to declare himself that I'm your leader. People will say that he is our leader.
That's a very good point.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? Because so somebody sees that things around them are not quite the way that they should be, and then feels the urge. It could be a humanitarian urge, it could be a religious urge, or political or social, whatever it is, and then starts to do something about it.
That kind of person.
You can't see there.
That kind of
You can't see.
Will tend to become a very good leader.
Yeah, it's
because
like
he started off with this ethical base point, with the vision to help people. Right now, we can talk about the other knowledge that people have for becoming leaders. You know, some could be monetary driven. There are various reasons why somebody wants to be a leader. You know, some people maybe sort of abusive children. They want to prove to themselves. You know, as in childhood things. And so we'll come back to mental health on these things, but there are lots of different driving factors, I think, within each individual, which we'll cover in a second half.
What about those people that we talk about as being born leaders? Who are they? Who are born leaders? Who tells them? Is it the parents tell them? How do you tell your child you are a born leader?
You can see the quality.
You see, every individual is different in the world. No two people are same.
No.
Now, some people have some qualities naturally, and there are two types. There are certain things which are natural, and certain things which are unnatural. For natural things, we don't need any training, like insulting someone or throwing rubbish on the road. It's unnatural, isn't it? Like it's a part of the nature. People do that. They don't need training. But if somebody wants to become unhealthy, it is unnatural. But to become healthy, it's a natural. So there are two types. Now, for example, I give you the example of Quaid-e-Azam, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. When he started his leadership in India during British Raj, he was very much, he was thinking that I'm trying to do so much for this community and they are not listening to me. And at one point he was really fed up and he left India, came back to England. And at that time, the great poet Allama Iqbal, he went to England at that time during India, and he said to Quaid-e-Azam, you are the only one who can do something. And then he pursued him to come back to India, and then start his movement.
So basically some people may not know that they are leaders, and there are other people who might see the qualities within them, and they push them towards that leadership because they are, people don't themselves realize the qualities, but other people around them witness that they are leadership qualities.
And there is a very good quote by someone that a good leader is who admits that everything is his fault. He is a good leader.
And also, I think I heard this morning somewhere that a good leader will always try to unite people.
Yeah.
You know, he will not try to separate. You know, the good leadership qualities are.
But Harry, sometimes I'm just thinking of. I'm actually watching something at the moment in Ertugrul. I'm looking at the Ottoman Empire and historically and the link between religion and state affairs and all that. I'm quite hooked by it, and I think I'm on episode 100 and something. But something that I learned through my own discovery of different leadership styles and things, and obviously through the work that we all do in our input into communities, is that not all great leaders are great leaders of that time.
No.
They become great leaders at a later date. Because
Yeah.
at that time they are not seen as great leaders.
No.
Because what they're doing, they are fighting against the status quo, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're fighting against the norms of society.
Yeah.
What we talked about last week,
Yes.
in terms of sort of different leadership styles, and we looked at conventional, unconventional styles. At that moment in time, they're a bit of a pain, aren't they, in the neck, because they're questioning everything. Well, constantly they're saying this is not right. We need to make a change, and there's a rebellion from within a rebellion, isn't there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's true.
When I just mentioned that leaders try to unite people, right? Because not everybody agrees with you, and a good leadership quality would be to try and the people who dissenters, to bring them on board, right? Try and make them see your point of view, and that are those are the best of the qualities of any leadership, I would say. Let's just briefly touch on, we're talking about leaders. The greatest leaders were our religious prophets.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yes.
But their motives had no knowledge of monetary kind of things.
They were unconditional.
Unconditional. That's
But it goes back to what Shakoor Sahib said right at the beginning, because they see something not right, they see something wrong from whatever perspective you look at, and they want to make a change. They want to influence it.
And he brought the change. In 23 years, the change he brought, the entire culture was changed, entire community was changed. And his leadership quality, you can see, the first few years in Mecca, his leadership was very, very different than his leadership in Medina. It's very different. They're two different lives.
I never narrow it down to our Prophet, peace be upon him, because as you know,
that's
all
too
the
big.
prophets,
That's big.
The point I want to make, as far as the the religious leaders are concerned, especially in the word I want to say is the people the person who voted for them are not people. They were brought in by.
They had an ordained role. They had an ordained role.
Was there.
And they were placed, and it's a different thing.
That's
but
right.
We're looking at leadership. But we're looking at leadership styles and unity. What qualities, if we talk about great leaders, if we talk about historical great leaders, whether they be political or otherwise, what are the qualities that makes a great leader, as opposed to somebody who's not a great leader, who is a bad leader? Is there such a thing as a bad leader?
I think the good qualities will cover that he is passionate, enthusiastic, and very good in communication. Communication is the key. Even in any kind of leadership, whether it's a leadership of parents in the house, or leadership in the mosque, in the church, in temple, or in any organization. So it's like I'm working in Togmine, and my manager is really, really supportive, and I have a very good communication. I can work better.
Yes.
And the message.
Yeah. And it is happening in my organization with me. So I am working better. Same way, if parents are a good leader, they will have a good children, and children will have a good life. So the leadership qualities: communication, enthusiasm, honesty, and trust. People must have a trust on that leader, that if he is saying something, he is right.
So what makes a bad leader then?
Bad leader means corruption. If there is a corruption, if he has his own hidden agenda, if he is working on somebody else's behalf, he is misusing his power, that's a bad quality.
How do they create this? How the leader themselves, the people who are putting themselves forward as leaders, how do they create this perception that they are the ones that should be accepted as a leader?
Sometimes people don't have a choice in some countries. Sometimes people don't have that kind of power that they choose. They have to choose.
So let's try and think of some names then. I mean, we were actually doing bits of a brainstorm of leaders and what makes good leaders and bad leaders and who are they.
The names out.
I'm actually trying to think of the names. So, for example, we were thinking of here at the moment. Obviously, there's a leadership campaign going on in this country. So we were thinking of people like Boris Johnson. Previously, we mentioned obviously Jeremy Corbyn, but then we looked at the people historically like Margaret Thatcher, Churchill, and then we've got international.
We'll let Dr. Shakoor come up with a good leader or a bad leader.
Okay, that'd be good. Okay. So we've got Churchill there.
Yeah.
Was Churchill a good leader?
No, Churchill from two perspectives, because he can give the Muslim perspective, but he can give the Western perspective, right? Whether it's a good or a bad.
Yeah, it's like you see the Winston Churchill.
Yes,
it's a great name, and he did really remarkable things in his life when he was a leader. A lot of people follows him as well when it comes to leadership. When we come to the current situation at this point, when in England, the Brexit.
So we've got Theresa May, and then we've got Boris Johnson, who's now obviously fighting for leadership. So on the 23rd, we will have a decision, and obviously we've got Boris, and then we've obviously got Jeremy on the other side.
But we shouldn't forget that these leaders, they are not the only one who will decide. They have a civil servants around. So sometimes we think that this man who is coming and he will make really big change and he cannot do it because policies are, it's something else. It's like a yes minister sometimes.
It's very, very real. That program was so real. That's exactly
it's like
what
that.
happens in corridors of power.
Yeah, so in these days...
So let's move on to some of the other great names, and obviously we've got great. You mentioned Qaid-e Azam, but also on the other hand,
Gandhi was the leader,
and then we've got Indira Gandhi later
Indira
on.
Gandhi,
so obviously we've got now Gandhi had a very different way, a different persona,
and
different qualities.
Both has a different.
They were very different people of the same era. You had Gandhi, who obviously even just in his attire was different, and obviously we've got Indira Gandhi there, who went on to move that legacy, and then we've got Rajinder Gandhi, and then we've got other people later, and most recently we've had another offspring there. So all these people, very different kinds of people, aren't they?
Very different kinds. Like for example, Qaid-e Azam. Gandhi was arrested quite a few times by British soldiers, but Qaid-e Azam never, because he was a barrister, he was a lawyer. He knew the law, so he was going with the law. Now Qaid-e Azam and Gandhi had a good friendship, and they both did a marvelous job for their communities.
So you say both of them were good leaders?
They were good leaders.
Let's look at Nelson Mandela, because when you talk about, earlier on we talked about rebellion and fighting against the status quo. Often, culturally, somebody that's been arrested a few times becomes a leader. They become a leader, don't they?
In these days, it says that if you go into the prison, you will become a leader.
You come out a leader.
That's how it's. In some South Asian culture, that shows as well.
So what about? Okay, let's move it a bit further. So someone like Gaddafi. And then we've got similar era.
You have a leader that you don't know nothing about, right? Let's take the case of a Christian leader. Oh, she may be atheist. I don't know. I think it's probably a Christian. New Zealand. Jacinda Ardern, right? How she just through one single act of goodness.
I mean, the picture that we've got up, she looks more Muslim than I do at the moment. But
through one act of kindness and goodness,
humanity.
She just upped everything. Her status became so.
Those that didn't know her name, I mean, that didn't know her, didn't know the country. She's probably one of the most famous leaders, if I may so, across the world. That. When you talk about good leadership, out of a very catastrophic, horrific incident,
Yeah, which happened.
I would say she was reborn a great leader.
Great leader.
Would you agree?
So then
Yes.
that one act, you know,
Of course.
it was the Second World War that made Churchill, you know, up his.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
his
showed to
status
the
kind
world
of thing.
that
So
this is my community.
So what did she show though? I mean,
even when I was going to say Margaret Thatcher, you know, I think if it wasn't for the Falklands War, she wouldn't have made it that great.
No,
you know,
no.
She would have been lost.
And then you've got Tony Blair with the Iraq War.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Iraq War, yeah.
What can we say? Says it all, doesn't it, really?
Yeah,
That
so-
there has to be some kind of catastrophic incident. But great leaders are born or show their true strength, integrity, honesty and strength out of horrific incidents, don't they?
I think great leaders are born great leaders. Other, they just become leader. This is what I think.
You have to explain that one. That's gone right over my
So give us an example. We're going to go to a break in a minute. What do you mean?
I cannot judge anybody that who is wrong, good or who is bad, because maybe one leader is not good for some part of the world. Maybe he's a good leader for some part. Like, for example, Saddam Hussein.
Yes.
A lot of people think he was a dictator.
He's hated, but for his country.
Yeah, but for this, at the same time, there are people, those who say that he was great as well.
Was he a born leader
So,
though?
he was a born leader.
How would you put that in? You know, I don't understand that. How would you put somebody?
Harry doesn't agree with you. I can see by his. He might be a leader, but what makes a leader great?
Great. And why is it born leader? What do you think? What makes him a born leader in your?
You know, the leader who becomes a leader and then he dies as a leader with the natural causes, he is a born leader.
But he was hungry.
He was hung. So we didn't give him a chance, right? So he was a leader, that's why he was there until the last day of his life. And he was hung. There are so many conspiracy theories why he was hung. Some people say he was right. Some things.
The prophet.
There.
Jesus prophet, peace be upon him.
Yeah.
You know, because he was crucified as a leader.
No, when we talk
So do you have to
about-
be killed then? You have to be martyred or killed or shot? I'm just
No,
trying to think of Pakistan,
no.
India, places like that. Not many of them die of natural causes, do they?
No, they don't die, but the
No,
good,
seriously,
no, but the good leader is that suppose there is a leader, he is ruling the country, and then he retired, for example, and then he is living his own life, and when he dies, and even it doesn't bother to the people, he was not a good leader. Good leader means people will remember that person forever.
So it's
Benazir Bhutto comes to mind.
I was just thinking of
I was
Benazir.
thinking about her because absolutely wonderful, you know, first lady president of an Islamic country, and you know she was sort of way up there as far as leadership is concerned, and yet, you know, look where we are historically, remembering her with great pride.
Yeah.
Could have been a fantastic leader, and I think where Imran Khan is now picked up, she would have brought it here. You know, that's what my own opinion is. You know, I don't know much about the politics.
But we don't have to forget that in some South Asian places, leaders are selected by third world. I mean, third power.
It's an interesting one.
It's not, there is an influence. It's a very big, huge game which is going on, and maybe we don't know. And we cannot be proved that, but things are happening. You see, a lot of things are happening. For example, journalist who was murdered in Turkey, in Saudi embassy. Nothing is happening. Because if that thing would have happened somewhere else, the results would have been different.
Well, let's go on to a break. We'll have a quick commercial break, and then we'll continue our conversation about the perceptions and the qualities and perceptions of a good and bad leadership. And in particular, I want to home in on looking at how those perceptions are created, Harry, and what role do we have to play in terms of selecting and electing our leader. Let's go to a quick commercial break. We'll continue our conversation on the qualities and perceptions around leadership in the world.
The contents of this program may not necessarily represent the views of UK24 TV.
Saddique, welcome back. Very quick break, and we're going to continue our conversation about the qualities and perceptions of good and bad leadership. Now, we've spoken just briefly now about some of the qualities. Now, these perceptions, because some things are factual, aren't they, in terms of someone's, what they say. I mean, factual in the sense of what we hear. What they mean is something different, could be something different. When we look at the example of our New Zealand MP, we could see that she, in her actions, it was proven in terms of bringing communities together. Yes. So there was something real that we could see. But often it is said that the perceptions that are created for a purpose. Would you agree with that?
I think when I see what Jacinda Ardern did, she displayed total humanity. Okay, and that's something that a lot of leaders sadly don't have humanity in them. You know, they are warmongers. They have this desire to go and conquer, kill, maim. You know. I think we call them dictators as well. We have leadership, then we have dictatorship. You know?
Hitler. I'm thinking of someone like Hitler. What was happening there? I don't think we gave that name earlier on, but someone like that. But having said that, you said something quite interesting there, in the sense that that leader may be great for the state or the people that they represent. Yes. But when it comes to the rest of the world, they may not. And sometimes there's a debate between the great Islamic world and versus against the rest of the world. If you look at the Saudi Empire and look at the sheikhs there and the princes and the kings, to those people and looking after those people, they may not be great leaders because they don't represent the philosophy and the politics of the rest of the world. Yes. Even Putin sometimes is seen as not.
Some people have worked their way up to leadership, and some people are born into prosperity and they become leaders through having wealth.
Well, like the kings and the princes and all those people. Our royal family, are they?
They're not leaders, are they?
They're not leaders.
But the Queen is head of state, though, isn't she?
No,
but they are not. They won't count as a leader, I think. But the example you gave, Saudi and Arab Emirates, they are leaders, but they are not elected leaders.
How can you say Saudis are leaders?
No, but they are not elected ones.
The kings.
Exactly. So they're just kind of dictators in a way.
Are they really?
No.
Allegedly.
No. Whether you call dictator, it's a leader. Who is dictator? That's how it works. Now, these leaders are not elected by people, isn't it? They are just leader because.
Is there anything wrong? Is there anything wrong though? If someone dictates. They come in and they dictate. Let's for one second go down the argument that the Saudi Empire or the Saudi kings and princes, they're there to dictate. They don't go through a democratic process. They are not elected. They're selected. Let's not use the word oppress at the moment. But
they are selected. But if you are saying that if they are good for their people,
if they're good for their people. Then and at the same time, they're not causing chaos for the rest of the world.
Then they are
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. So the best example is Pakistan.
Causing chaos for the rest of the world?
No, but the best example is Pakistan. If you see the history of Pakistan from 1947 till today, the more years are ruled by army, then less by elected government. And whenever army was ruling,
General Pervez Musharraf,
Pakistan was better. Pakistan was in better condition and situation. Whenever army was there, Ayub Khan, Pervez Musharraf, Yahya Khan, all this era where army was there, ruling, controlling, people were better off. If you talk to the people.
Again, I go back to what I said earlier on about leadership, having empathy. You know, Jacinda Ardern, she has a humanity and empathetic nature to her side, right? Which, if you bring armies, generals as your leaders of your state, that they're training does not allow them to be humanity, to have that humanity.
No,
I mean, Harry, you're from a royal. You spent most of your life in the royal. Why can't somebody from any of the armed forces? Why can't they be seen as true statesmen?
No, I will tell you. I think this is. We could do a program on this ourselves, because the mental health issues that come into it. You know, I'm absolutely. You know, you join as a young person into the army, navy, or the air force.
You want to protect. You're loyal. You're
no, but you are
state.
You're training subconsciously or subliminally. It trains you into becoming somebody who has to remove their humanity somewhat to be able to, you know, to give your life to be, you know, kill or to be killed is not an easy thing for a person to do. So your mind has to be conditioned.
Well, could it be?
I think a few years ago I came to see you about this the conditioning thing.
Yes, yeah.
Psychotherapy.
Yeah, psychotherapy.
For the armed forces, because once you come out of it, for the last 23 years, I have been bringing myself out of the training, and it's taken me all this time. I have no help with it. Now I'm more in touch.
On this line, we're not quite off track. We're still on track, because it'd be quite interesting to see what our audience thinks. For someone to put their life for their country,
yes,
and to say that I would be honoured to be martyred for my country. This honorary psychological state of mind. And no, but I'm trying to think of recently something that our present Prime Minister of Pakistan has said, Imran Khan, that he is somebody that would die for the country. He has quite blatantly said that. What is that about? What is the psychology behind that, when somebody believes that is the most prestigious, most honourable thing to do for a country as a statesman? I'm not talking about the army, but how different is it to that?
Yeah, it's like, for example, when you talk about Imran Khan. Now, Imran Khan, if he has seen that a lot of things were not going right, and he said he doesn't want corruption and he wants a clean society, and he says that I love my country and I want to do something for my people. Now that drive, that force is bringing him to the point where he now saying, I can even die for my country. So because in his mind he has decided that I don't want anything. All my everything is for my country, and nothing is mine. So when people are saying that nothing is mine, then he doesn't have any fear, even death.
Is that an Islamic ideology?
I just put that down as a note, actually.
Is it an Islamic ideology, or is it about great people who say, I was just thinking, if I may, bring some parallel to it. When we talk about great leaders and people who want to do something great, I think of the romanticizing of it, how a great lover would say to his lover, his partner, that I would lay my life for you. Great poets. And you mentioned the great poet Allama Iqbal. Many of the poetry brings us to life and death and that.
You just bring that in, right? Because you just reminded me about, you mentioned the Queen earlier on, and we said she's not a leader, she's a figurehead. And I just want to take us back a few centuries, especially with the history of the United Kingdom and the West, where they used to have kings, King Harold, King John. The kings used to go into battle to protect the faith. You know what I mean? They were the defenders of the faith, and they were the first ones on the horse to go out and fight for their kingdom. And nowadays we've lost that chivalry.
They don't need to get on a horse, though.
They don't.
they get in the car or the jet or the helicopter or whatever. I mean, times have changed, but in terms of in this particular segment, in looking at how these perceptions are created, do you think some of these perceptions are manufactured?
No, I think they are natural. They can't be manufactured, isn't it? And let me tell you this, this Imran Khan thing, when I say that he's done this and he's thinking, what he has in his heart, only Allah knows. We don't know. But we can just talk what he says. So it's not that I am just promoting him or I'm on taking his side, or that's not that. Now manufacturing, you mean that inspiration you are talking about? That manufacture. No, that's a natural. It comes from inside.
No, nowadays I think with the manufacturing, that perception can be created about a person through social media. Okay, there is so much fake news nowadays, which they can create myriads of fake news about giving a side of a person that doesn't exist, and people start to believe it. And therefore
that's what you mean by manufacturing.
So someone like Donald Trump, could we give him a really soft, gentle, humanitarian, kind of like granddaddy type perception? Could it be created?
Media can create if media wants to.
Yes, it could. But
media can create if media wants to.
The damage is done. If at the outset he wanted to create that perception, yes, we could. But now he's shown his true colours anyway. And no matter how much fake news you put out, well, he created the word fake news as well, I think.
Because he said himself, especially those remarks about those 4 women in America recently, it's a very high. And I think now 2 leaders from Britain and also other MPs have written about it as well.
Yes, I think there was a debate in the House of Lords. We are going to go to another break, and in the last segment, I think what we want to do is look at some examples of anybody out there who's looking at leadership styles and maybe wants to become a leader, and how we can actually track who is a born leader, how we can make a leader, how we can inspire to be a leader, and maybe knock a few people off their leadership. So let's go straight to the break, and we'll come straight back and continue our conversation about the perceptions and the qualities that look at good and bad leadership.
The contents of this program may not necessarily represent the views of UK24 TV.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to UK Today, where we're looking at the qualities and the perceptions of leaders, good and bad. Now, one thing that we haven't really had a chat about, we just quickly mentioned it, was about gender and how sexuality can play a significant role within leadership, and the names that come to mind are people like Margaret Thatcher, Benazir Bhutto, we've got Sheikh Hasina, if we just look at
Angela Merkel in Germany,
Merkel.
Then Benazir Bhutto, Hasina Wajid,
yes,
then Indira Gandhi,
yes,
Benazir Bhutto,
again.
How many times is that? I know we both like.
But have you noticed one thing?
Go on.
There are very.
They're all women.
There are very many leaders, men, and lot of leaders are famous and lot of are not famous, but all women leaders, they are all famous.
Do you think that is it because there are a few, it's a minority, or do you think that the women that become great leaders are actually great leaders?
Women can become, in these days, I'm talking about today's century, not the past, like 1500 years ago or anything. In today,
I mean, right at the beginning,
women are better leaders than men.
I mean, well, that's
psychologically, why is that better?
Why is that?
Woman becomes a mother. Men don't.
Natural instinct.
Women has a more kind of a coping power of
And the strength as well.
pain. If man has a slight cut, he will dial 999. Where a woman goes through this labor pain, keeping 9 months someone in the tummy, man is carrying or a carrier bag of grocery from grocery store and he's tired. Women carrying this
So
bag.
you're talking about
She has got
the
more.
true strength. Women who are empowered,
Yeah.
and we talk about empowerment. One of the things that, this is my own personal opinion, one of the things that I often say through the political work that I'm involved in is that the empowerment that I have in terms of my role as a woman in the work that I do is something that has been given to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not by men.
Yeah.
Because
it's
because
to work. It's like when you're a minority, you have to work twice as hard.
But we're not a minority, Harry, are we? What about generally in society? We're not.
But ladies were kind of oppressed, not allowed to come out and be leaders and have those positions in the past, right? So now,
is it because men are scared?
Yes.
Men is always scared of women.
Always scared of women.
But why is that? Why?
Yeah, because that's why.
If we're so mothering and you see us as mothers and you see us as sisters and you see us as daughters, and those roles are primarily about caring and love and all those things, affectionate. Then why are men scared of that side?
That's why he kept the woman inside the house. He said he has got a qabza in the house. If she will go out, she will do the qabza on the world. So let's keep him inside. You see, a woman, there is a little bit of man in every woman, and there is a little bit of woman in every man. The man who has got more women inside, he becomes a good leader. So, woman is a full woman, so she can be a good leader. That's the psychology.
One of the things that sometimes has been said is that when you look at it from Islamic perspective, and we have no alim here at the moment, none of us are alims, but our own life experiences teaches us many things, is that from a religious ideological point of view, that head of state should never be a woman. Why?
Yeah. There are...
It's something, we haven't got an alim here, but it would be interesting to...
In Islam, there are 4 schools of thoughts. And they have a different views on different things. For main thing, they are all on one point. It's nothing wrong with the school of thoughts. That God is one and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger, Holy Quran, Jesus, Moses, peace be upon him, they are all prophets. And when it comes to a woman, that she cannot be head of the state, alims, they give their reasons as well. Islamic perspective and all this. When we have some alim, then you can talk to them as well.
Yes, this is something I think that in the future it would be interesting.
But Islam is a very moderate religion. It's not like a forced thing, something. And it has got this flexibility that it changes. So the way time
do you agree with there are different perceptions, but Harry, do you agree with the fact that there is a little bit of man in every woman and a little bit of a woman in every man? What does that mean?
Yes, there is.
I think yesterday, if you
I was just looking at you and I was trying. I can see some woman in you.
You see, because God has created. God has created from Adam to Eve.
Absolutely.
Yesterday I was watching the leadership contest last night, and the same question.
I don't know if I can see a woman in Boris Johnson.
The same question was asked.
But Margaret Thatcher, yes.
To both of them.
Yeah.
Jeremy Hunt and Boris Johnson.
What was the question?
They asked him, "Are you a feminist?" Now, describe what a feminist is to me, go on. And then we'll tell you whether I've got a bit of female in me or not. I think having the nature to accept a woman on the same level is feminism, I think. You know what I mean? So from that perspective, yes, you can say I've got a bit of woman in me. I'm a feminist in that, and from that.
I think feminist is the term used in Europe, right?
Yes, it is.
But ideally, what our religion preach is that men must respect a woman. And if you respect a woman, because most of the time, you know what? Women, no matter how no matter how less intelligent she is, but she is always intelligent when it comes to a man.
And she's always the
Within
leader in the
1
house.
minute, women can tell the intention of men.
Wow.
She doesn't show that, but she knows.
Amazing.
Men
Amazing.
cannot. Man can be a very, very intelligent man, but when it comes to a woman, he is not intelligent. There are a lot of examples where men has left their kingdom for women. Give me one example where woman has left anything for men in the history.
Well, she actually leaves her father's home and goes to that's her kingdom, isn't it?
No.
I can see your point. What I'm thinking, I'm thinking at the same time here is as you're talking, in the sense that when it comes to great female leaders, and we gave the example, whichever way you look at it, or women that we know, if we look at Margaret Thatcher, if we look at Benazir, if we look at Myrtle, all those people, if we look at them, Indira Gandhi, they are not very feminine in the conventional sense, are they? Because they take on the traits of men.
They try to prove themselves.
Oh, okay, there is one question. When Benazir Bhutto was the Prime Minister of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, how many Maulvis gave fatwa that she cannot be? Have you seen any fatwa? No.
No, but the thing about, you just mentioned, do they take on the persona of a masculine person? I think with Benazir, she remained a lady to the end. She didn't have that, masculine trait in her. Like Margaret Thatcher, I think, you could say that, she was the Iron Lady.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
But is there anything wrong in that? If we look at leadership and we look at the traits and the
There's nothing
qualities,
wrong in that, I think.
if a man comes across as being compassionate, does that make him more feminine? And if a woman comes across as being ruthless, does that make her less of a woman?
A woman has a ruthless trait in them to start with, right? They have to be ruthless, especially when, I think this is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has built this within them because they have to protect their young, I think if a woman's children are in danger, she will have the strength of 10 men to protect her young, So that's how strong you can be. And as far as leadership is concerned, I think we'll agree on this, right? As far as leadership is concerned, she's in the house, she's the leader, right?
I was just thinking, all these things so far, we've talked about people being born leaders, and we've talked about natural personality traits in terms of genetically how they are, but then obviously history tells the tale that like you said, some leaders are born out of a struggle or a cause. What about the offspring of leaders who become leaders? So almost it's like veracity,
that should come to an end now.
Like Sheikh Hasina,
that is the poison.
The Gandhis, and even the Bhutto family. We've got
Bhutto
people.
Family, that's a poison.
I've always said that a peer's son cannot be a peer.
Yeah.
All right. And therefore, we separate between the monarchy, which you're born into. You become a heir to the throne. X numbers in the line. Wait for it. But as far as normal leadership is concerned, you cannot, unless the apprenticeship has been done of being a political leader.
Well, the apprenticeship is done, isn't it? Because Harry, the child is carried for 9 months, and if the mother, let's for example talk about Benazir, or let's for example talk about Indira Gandhi, that child was carried whilst they were doing their political journey, and so they had that training, and it's absorbed. The child came into the world, and all that child saw was a political dynasty and a political personality, and they moved on. So are they not then born leaders?
No, I don't think so. Because
I'll play the devil's advocate here.
Because those 23 cells.
Yes.
They don't have a political cell.
Chromosomes.
They don't have a political chromosome. It's not there.
No.
Also, if a woman or a man is a leader, good leader, and if his son or a daughter is good as well,
A good
then
leader.
there is no
There's no harm.
harm.
There's no harm.
But if they are just becoming a leader because my father was a leader, that is a different story. Like in poetry, if my father was a poet and I am a poet as well, and I am doing good poetry as well of my own, then no problem. But if I am just using some of the poems of my father,
Well, the biggest example that I can see is of Bilawal Bhutto. So you look at Bilawal Bhutto or Bilawal Zardari, whichever name, and I mean they are within. I mean he's chair of the party, but if you look at politically and how the dynasty, Benazir was a prodigy, wasn't she, of her father. So that same argument, Harry, that you just said,
relating it back to what Dr. Shakoor just said,
has moved on.
You know, the chromosomes don't relay that to it, but she became independently political, right, and therefore she became a great political person. In her own right.
Her father didn't make her leader.
She became.
But Bilawal, his father is making him.
Yes.
And people can...
But he doesn't really refer to his father as his sort of mentor or his, in terms of leader. Well, it seems that a lot of the political spiel that is there narrated is his mother's or his grandfather's, so it's from that side of the family. I mean, obviously Zardari himself came in from let's say from a different door. He came in through marriage. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, he was not a politician.
Yes.
He was a businessman. He had few cinemas in Karachi, owned by his father Hakim Ali Zardari and then Asif Zardari. And the reason why Zardari...
It could be argued he was more of a badmash and more of a corrupt person as opposed to anything else.
And the reason why Benazir Bhutto got married to him is, in Sindh, the culture, because I've lived there very many years. I did my medicine in Ladkana, so I know the Sindhi culture. In Sindh, the girls are married and the boys are in very early age. They don't wait till 22, 23, 24. So when Benazir was not married until she was 30 or something, and then it was very, very hard to find a boy in Sindhi who is not married, like Kuwar, unmarried. Only Asif Ali Zardari was there.
In the whole world, in the whole Sindh and everywhere. I mean, that's...
No, so he was like kind of, that's why that marriage took place.
So what would happen in this country?
Or anything.
I mean, obviously we've got the, I mean, whether they are... obviously they're not political leaders, but they are leaders of the royal family, and you see the dynasty and how that's carried forward, and they are
son after son,
sons and daughters and all that kind of thing. What would it be like if one of our, let's just say, Margaret Thatcher's or Boris Johnson's or Tony Blair's or Churchill from that era, their child decided that they wanted to join politics?
Churchill's grandson is in politics.
Yes.
So there is a legacy there.
Yes.
But again, they became political of their own, whether the influence was there, but they have to prove themselves politically to become where what they became.
He cannot be a leader just because he's the grandson of Winston Churchill. But in our country, things are very different. Very many things are different. Now that Sindh, it's a tribal kind of way that we are the ruler. And we rule, and majority of the people are living in the village, depending every day for food and bread on them. So obviously, if they say that, okay, this is yours, this money or this, and then when it comes to election, the whole village is giving the vote to him.
Give me, I mean, in the last sort of few minutes, I want to think of some, if we can be so bold and brave, to think of present day leaders and whom we would look from our perspective, sitting here in Britain, of bad leaders.
You mean who are the good leader in Britain and who are the bad leader?
Not within Britain, but across the world, examples of. From your perspective, who would you say is a bad leader at this present day?
I think if majority of the people living in the country, and if they don't like that person, he cannot be a good leader.
So it has to be within that country?
But then
country, not
let's say
outside.
a country of 5 million people, okay?
Yeah.
And out of the 5 million, about 1 million really like it, right? Yeah. And the other 4 million keep quiet about it.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't even hear their voices.
Yeah.
So, and all you hear is this echo of good from the people who really appreciate that leader. So does that make him a good leader?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, because he's managed to shut up the majority, hasn't he?
You know,
I mean, that in itself is good leadership, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because he's got control.
Yeah.
And you've, and I can't think of any country where
I think
fear, elitism, they're people that rule. The money rules.
Yeah,
and those
I
people-
think sometimes the leader's qualities, like how good he is, his personal life or his other thing, these things don't matter sometimes for very many people of the country if economy is rising and people are getting more
Prosperity.
jobs, education, things are available, resources are there, then they don't bother.
Can I just give an analogy there?
Why Donald Trump can be another 5 years president?
So here we are, right? Let me just put this to you. In Pakistan, right, people see a certain leader leaving behind a legacy. He built roads. And all they know is about that roads were built by him. That road was built by him.
Yeah.
But roads matter in a country like Pakistan.
Yes, it does. Okay, fine, I understand that.
Yeah.
But look what
Roads
damage-
and bridges matter.
That was a perception that the people were given, and what was going on behind the scenes is totally different as we learn now.
Yeah. Doesn't really matter if the roads are beautiful, but if they've only got a bicycle or they can't afford the petrol, but the roads matter, don't they?
Then what does the road mean for what?
Smooth ride. I hope you've had a smooth ride with us today.
A smooth ride on a bumpy road is not possible.
So do we agree that women are better leaders than men?
Yes, we are. We
Okay.
can't.
Very
Otherwise, we can't disagree with that.
And I actually managed to get them to say that without actually saying anything to them, so that must say something. We have come to the end of today's program.
I think women are better leaders, that's why you are hosting. Otherwise, Harry was there. You seen it?
Well, Carrie's my co-host, and I think it's a fact that he's a true gentleman, and that enables me
So,
to be able to do that, and of course that is I would say he's a woman within him.
If they want a leadership quality training and how to have a good mental health, I am always here in Oldham with our services.
Dr. Shakoor, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Shakoor, for coming in and enlightening us about some of the traits and some of the personalities. Very, very interesting. Next week, we're actually got something new. We're going to be looking at the area of arts and culture. And because we're leading into plenty of melas and festivals and Diwalis and lots of things going on. Lots of the children will be going on to their holidays from the end of this week, next week, and we want to try and bring in. So we're bringing in lots of information and somebody from that particular field. So if you have information about an event or something that's going on, then please do share that. As we have come to the end of today's program.
And if they can recommend somebody that we can have as a guest, who's in the Manchester Oldham area, and they'd like to come and join us next week, then please contact Shanaz and myself.
Yeah, we'll do. Well, thank you very much. We've come to the end of today's program. It's been a wonderful evening, and I hope you continue to have a blessed evening. We've talked about lots of things today in terms of qualities and personalities, but of course we are not judge and jury. It's very interesting. Look after yourself, and hopefully see you very soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
The contents of this program may not necessarily represent the views of UK24 TV.